anything? I think I got we got a need, but I'll save for last. Anybody? Who's on?
Yeah, I'm looking for, I have a need, I suppose, kind of moving along, like in my REI career here. And yeah, so I'm looking for a deal to partner up on. I'm interested in single family home and condos for fix and flip on Oahu. I'm on the east side in Kailua, and my focus areas are east side from Kailua south and Honolulu east with outlier spots in Moalua and Salt Lake. I'm okay going outside those areas if the numbers work well, and I've been looking at properties 1.2 and 1.2 million and under on my own, so the partner possibly could go higher. I feel my strengths in the number crunching, planning, pushing projects across the finish line, including performing some of the work if necessary. The strengths that I'd be looking for in a partner be finding deals, and having some contacts, as a starting point for getting the work done. And of course, money is always helpful. I'll put my contact info in the chat, and would welcome the chance to talk about prospects of partnering up and sharing the info that I've picked up along the way. And obviously no obligation, and then the partnership doesn't come out of it, I'm sure we can at least at a minimum, strengthen and advance our individual strategies. So I'll put that in there if anybody's interested.
Right on, yeah, right on, Mitch. And are you focusing primarily in Hawaii, you think?
Yeah, for this on Oahu, to start. Yeah, I'm still looking at note flipping in Cleveland, Ohio. But okay. I'm still a little ways out on that. But just got some LLCs in place. I'm originally from Cleveland, so I have some boots on the ground there. Real estate prices are very attractive. I'm still kind of detailing and researching, as to why they're so attractive, and maybe we can find certain areas, that might work better than others.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Okay. Yeah. Please leave your info in the chat so people can reach out to you if they're looking to partner on something as well.
Yeah. No, that'd be great.
Hey, Mitch, were you able to link up with my buddy in Dallas?
I was able to, just shoot out a couple quick emails. He's out of town. I think he left last week and he's out of town for 2 weeks, but we kind of set up a time to talk the beginning of May. And, but yeah, he's had some really good info, and, some of the info that he shared was kind of surprising. He was saying he was even able to sell his notes for par. So essentially get full face value of the note when he went to sell it, whether it be 6 months down the line.
Yeah, he's got a really cool model. It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I'm excited to actually sit down and chat with him. I also met with Michael from Anderson Advisors.
Yeah, I'm glad you reached out to him. He's a good man.
Yeah. So we talked for about 45 minutes the other day, and he's kind of where I am right now. Like, really, the only thing that would really fit would be the platinum package, and I should be kind of curious if anybody has put their platinum package, which is $3,500 for the year, and that includes unlimited conversations and discussions with lawyers. If you bring them, you also get to use the forms and documents that they have in their library. And if you don't have something that works for you, if you can find something, then their lawyer will adjust it to fit your specific market and whatever rules that are imposed on you by the state. So I was actually kind of curious, what kind of experience you've had, and if you've used them for any lawyer work, and in detailing any lawyer work, or if you've used any of their documents.
Yeah. So I think I bought the titanium package. It's funny that they use all the metals: titanium, platinum, galvanized steel, Rust-Oleum.
Yeah. I guess whoever's on the silver package, is left empty-handed, I guess, and feeling pretty bad about themselves.
But yeah, the unlimited LLCs are really helpful, especially if you're planning on acquiring a lot of properties and then you want to do a different LLC for each property, because I literally just send them an email, give them the address, tell them who the partners are, if there's partners, how to structure it, and then they get it done. They file everything all the way to the EIN, and then send it to me in a really cute, pretty binder that runs, I'm sure, thousands of dollars, and then I throw the binder away, but it looks pretty. And then, yeah, so some of the legal stuff, I would say that they're good on some basic legal things that tie to what they're doing in terms of their flywheel. But like for Corey and I, we have external counsel as well that is specialized in different aspects of real estate. And so they're more powerhouse, especially when it comes to, say, litigation. So, I mean, I think it's worth it. They're a good resource for sure.
Yeah, I definitely had a lot of interesting ideas. And he brought up for the unlimited LLCs, it was 10,000. So I think that's, you're pretty close to in line with what you were thinking. Now, is that 10,000 annually, or is that, forever?
Forever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Seems like at some point that business model wouldn't work anymore if they had, a bazillion clients. I mean, I imagine they just keep upping the price then, once they get somewhere. But yeah, unlimited LLCs, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. I mean, that's be stacking a lot of.
Mitch, we might have lost you, but in response to that, so it's unlimited LLC in terms of their assistance, but any fees tied to the LLC are still additional fees. So in terms of like a filing fee for the state, that type of thing would still be additional a la carte. But in terms of the manpower to actually put it together, to me, that's huge because they do all of that legwork.
Yeah, no, that's outstanding. I mean, certainly if you're going through LLCs for each property that you're acquiring, that definitely makes sense.
Yeah, they're really good at that. So, yay, I'm glad you're hooking up with them. They're good people. And anybody else who needs an introduction to Anderson Advisors, if you're planning on expanding your real estate portfolio, you're looking at somebody who can help you with LLC structure, or even the structure of your personal assets to put everything, say, in a trust. That can also happen with them. They do all of that. And they also help you think through your will and really set everything up. So that way, in case something happens to you, I mean, all of us are going to die at some point. But when that happens, what's going to happen with your business, what's going to happen with your real estate, what's going to happen with your passive income. And so all of that they can help document. So that way it becomes no burden on your loved ones. Pretty cool stuff. If anybody needs that resource, shoot us a message, and then Corey and I will get you an introduction, and you'll be off and running like Mitch.
Thanks, Mitch. Does anybody have anything else that they need? Any good deeds?
I think we need to say happy birthday to Corey. I feel like we haven't done that adequately yet at the start. So
thank you.
Let's sing. Kaylee is the choir director.
No.
I should have brought the ukulele. Happy birthday. So.
Oh yeah.
You got a whole band here. Jonathan can play violin, so we're good to go. I get bagpipes. Layla can play the bottles.
She's got the shaker.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you guys.
We all appreciate you. We won't put you through the misery of listening to a happy birthday song. Although it would be pretty hilarious.
I had your age wrong, Kaylee. My apologies for getting the wrong age birthday shit stuff. I had my own age wrong, and I know he's 2 years older than me, and I thought I was 31. So I thought he was turning 32. So I thought he was turning 34, but apparently I'm already 32. I swear to God. That.
Yeah.
That's a sign, actually, that you got way too much going on when you can't even remember your own age. I mean, when you forget anniversaries, that's cool. You forget the years of your kids, Sometimes your husband may be all right, but man, if you don't even know what your own birth is, that's
swear to God, Corey gave me scoldings this morning, and I was like, wait, you're 2 years older than me. That means you're turning 34. And he's like, no, actually, I'm not. I'm like, how old am I? Haley spent hours last night, our whole meetup, hours decorating. It was so awesome.
I love you, bro. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Thank all of you guys. Yeah. That's another great year coming.
Corey, just keep in mind that when Ashley starts forgetting her name, then we got some serious issues.
Yeah.
Birthday, we'll be okay with that.
I remembered it was his birthday, and I'm sane. I can do your real estate transactions. Don't worry.
I'm competent, I promise. I'm just not good with numbers.
I'm really good with numbers, just not my own.
I'm so focused on everyone else that I just don't focus on myself. That's it.
You
I
just
love
know big numbers, right? Well, yeah,
Yeah,
big
30,
numbers is what's important.
32, 35, those are small numbers. You do 7-figure numbers, so.
Exactly.
So maybe you're 35 million years old. Who knows?
Well, thank all of you guys for, I don't know, it's like family. It's the Coffee Talk family, and wouldn't want to spend my birthday with any other group of people. So thank you guys. Anybody else have anything? Needs, leads, good deeds? Nothing? Ready to move on? Because actually we got our good friend JD back, and we kind of suckered him into like, hey, what's the update? And can we talk about short-term rentals? And so if you're ready to go, JD, we got questions. Maybe kick off if you got any, you can start.
Yeah. Anybody else, just before we transition to JD, so JD can get prepped, anybody else got any deals that you're looking at trying to place, or any challenge that you're facing right now that you feel stuck in that maybe the rest of us can help give some insight on?
Who is in short-term rental right now? You can drop it in the chat if you are.
Term rentals, and who's in it and who wants to be in it. It'd be kind of cool. Who's thinking about trying to get into short-term rentals, and who has no clue what STR even stands for? These short-term rentals.
Well, I'm curious what he has to say about, because I know that he was looking to getting into Hawaii short-term rentals, and now that Bill 41 is passing, sort of the strategy there. And then two, I have to get the contact, but one of my clients, he met with the largest short-term vacation rental property management here in Hawaii, and they guaranteed 90-day rental rates. They come and they do an assessment, see how much that they can get you. They have this 80% guarantee. They charge 18%, and they do not bother you for anything. They do all the repairs, all complaints with city, county, associations, everything like that. They try to and pride themselves in being completely hands off. So I don't know if that will be in line with your strategy, JD. And then a little plug is I have a client wanting off market. So any house flippers or wholesalers that don't have a deal that quite works for flipping, and they're not quite ready to list or anything. I have someone looking in Waimanalo, Kailua under 2 million, but they want to fix it themselves, but not fix and flip. So when, you know, those deals that aren't quite good enough to do anything with.
That's awesome. So we'll keep that in mind, and can answer that in a minute. Anybody else got any other needs in general? Otherwise, we will switch to JD. Those were great lead-in questions. Ashley may not remember her age, but she does have insightful real estate questions. We ain't gonna let you live that down, Ashley.
Yeah, you should have said that.
I wanted to just make it clear that you're loved, and that I didn't know my own age, and I felt shame that your whole office is decorated with your 34th birthday.
I have no problems being 34 again. Actually, thank you guys. Let's roll with that.
Well, all right. Well, let's just switch over then. So we're going to chat. So some of you know JD. JD's actually originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and so he's also a resident now of Hawaii. Lives right around the corner. We discovered this morning he's literally 3 minutes from me, so it's pretty convenient. And so he's in the short-term rental space. And if you haven't heard his first rendition of Coffee Talk with short-term rentals, take a look at it. I don't know if Sheena can post it in the link as well. He has a ton of great just background information, which we won't go to on this one. This is more just an opportunity for him to give an update on the space. The space is on fire right now. If those of you who are not in the space, it's a great opportunity to look at it, not only for yourself, but really, if you're a lender, it's great for the lending side because there's a lot of people looking for this type of a lending product. If you're a realtor, people are going to start asking more questions about it. Because where multifamilies have a certain cash on cash, short-term rentals cash on cash is sometimes double, if not even triple that of a standard multifamily. The interesting thing is you can often take a regular multifamily and even make it a short-term rental. But then on top of that, the reason it's attractive is a lot of people love short-term rentals for an investment because it's your second home. So you can rent it out all year long. And then when you want to use it, you block off those couple of weeks. And that's where spots like Palm Springs and Vegas and parts of Florida are really popular because people want to go there. JD's got a unique environment. He's up in the Poconos is where his majority of his things are, but he's expanding south to an area of North Carolina that is pretty cool. In fact, he just recently was sharing with me on a property that we might be interested in doing together, but it's in North Carolina. It's an opportunity that could be a short-term rental. So he's going to kind of share that deal. So that way, all of you who are kind of looking into the space can have some insights as to how to run some of these deals because the opportunity is huge. For those of you who don't know, this is the last year of full bonus depreciation. If you don't know what that is, you may want to Google it because that's pretty cool. Oh, Alex actually showed up to work. Nice, bro. It's a celebration that he shows up half hour late, but he's at work. We love it. But bonus depreciation, this is the last year of that. So that for those that are getting huge write-offs with short-term rentals, this is the year that a lot of them want to get the acquisition taken care of. So you want to start off, JD, just kind of globally. It's weird because you're there, but then you're also right there. So I know. So this is JD. He's sitting literally right there. So I'm talking to him here, but over there. But why don't we we'll start globally with some of the questions that Ashley had answered, just kind of on short-term rentals. And then if any of you have any global questions on short-term rentals, then we can kind of hit that on a global perspective and then fine tune in to running that deal in North Carolina, which would be fascinating for those of you who are into running analysis to see how you can run a short-term rental deal because analysis is slightly different, but very fascinating. So first of all, then let's hit global. JD, are you okay with that?
Yeah, totally.
As I'm looking at you right there, trying to look at you in the camera, so it looks funny. So Ashley had to ask some questions just about the Hawaii market. You had moved here to actually start buying in Hawaii for short-term rentals, but of course then regulations started to change. So what's your take on Hawaii for those that are looking at short-term rentals in Hawaii?
Yeah, sure. So for I'll wait till you. There we go. Yeah, you'll be able to hear me from here. So I actually came to Hawaii with the intention.
Can you talk louder? I can't hear you. I'm totally kidding.
Yeah, so I came to Hawaii with the intention of feeling out moving here. And I just figured with the way that business had built up in Philadelphia and the Poconos that naturally I was going to want to build a short-term rental business here once I was here. So I had been exploring Hawaii in the market for short-term rentals, but with the new bill, I really have stopped looking. It's very congested, and to be frank, the numbers in other areas that we've been looking at, both in my home markets in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Florida's a hot market, Texas, there's just so many other markets to explore that are just way more attractive from a cash on cash standpoint that I've stopped looking in Hawaii and just accepted it as kind of a home base to live. So that's the first answer as far as the Hawaii market. I would say that anything that is zoned for short-term rentals is going to just keep increasing in value, and that's interesting enough in itself. But I've been looking elsewhere.
Perfect. Oh, it is.
I'm trying to unpack all the questions.
Does anybody have any other?
Actually, what were the other questions that you had? I know you talked a lot about a property management company with guarantees, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I've got to talk to her myself personally, but my client was like, hey, if this falls out of contract, I met this property manager, largest short-term property manager on the island who guaranteed 80% of whatever they came and did the assessment of, and they charge 18%, and it's for 90-day rentals. And I said, well, you have permitting issues, you have this, you have that, and they're like, they take care of all of that. They have this whole guarantee that they sign that they are not going to bother you for anything for the term of the contract you have with them. So if there's a violation with the association, they pay for it. If there's the fridge goes out, they pay for it, and they take that out of their 18%. And I said, that sounds crazy. I don't think that that's profitable, but you know, he so much so that he was willing to let a very awesome cash buyer possibly pull out the contract due to like a couple day extension, because it was such an appealing position to be in, because he wanted to ideally keep the house. So, but that bill ruined, like, you know, he wanted to sell because of Bill 41. So I will get the information to you. So if you want to connect and find anything you really love and you think it would be a good fit, I'll send you their number. I got to get it.
I'd be really curious what company that is. And my guess would be that what they're doing is making all these guarantees so they can lock in as much business as possible, and then kind of letting things go after they see what's profitable and what's not. It's a really smart position. Super cool. The hands-off aspect has to be super appealing to everyone.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, you could send the info through, whether it's through the chat or I'll reach out after the call. That'd be awesome.
Reach out after, because I don't have it. He's tight. He holds his cards tight to his chest, so I have to kind of peel it out of him to get the information. But I'm gonna Google everyone and be like, "Is this it? Is this it?" I'll send it to you though when I get it.
Sure.
That's awesome. Hey, Carolyn.
I'm on, so they can probably hear you.
Okay, perfect. So Carolyn, you got a deal that is in Island Colony for a short-term rental. Is that right? What questions do you have about your short-term rental that JD might be able to give some insight to, given his vast experience in the field?
Well, I think that was the issues that I had. The person that I have, I hope I'm unmuted. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay.
I can hear you. Yeah.
The person that I'm looking at purchasing from is another investor, and they need to get out of it. But my thing is, you know, it's so uncertain with the 90 days and the new bill that passed. I was ready to jump on it. And then I don't know what is the market for the 90 days, like the nurses or folks that are coming here to, I love the glasses, Corey. The folks that are coming here, remote workers, because, you know, that's my concern.
Island Colony is really interesting. I believe that's one of the few that is zoned to actually do the daily rental. So you wouldn't have to worry about the 90 days even with the new bill. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, because I had looked into Island Colony pretty heavily. The nice thing with buildings like that is they're really easy to predict exactly how much they're going to make, because there are so many comps in the area, and there are so many comps in the building. So really it's very strict. If your investment criteria has a certain threshold you're trying to hit, you know what you're going to get with Island Colony. So I would just run it off the numbers. Do you know what they're asking and what size unit it is?
Yeah, it's I think 316 square feet. So it's a studio.
Sure.
Kitchen. They're asking 215, but it has a leasehold, and the lease is 65,000. So I thought about purchasing the lease and then purchasing the property so that I get it, you know, all in one. But then of course I'm a little concerned.
Yeah, totally. And you want to be careful. And this is one of the reasons I kind of like steer towards the mainland versus here is between the HOA fee and then a lease fee on top of what you're making on the rent. Like your occupancy will be great in Hawaii. I think on average, you're looking at maybe 80%, 85%, which is awesome. But with all those fees that you don't have to factor in elsewhere, it's tough to make the same margins. And I would say Island Colony units usually hit around 2,800 gross. And once you start factoring all those fees in, I just don't think you're going to be at the cash on cash you want to be.
2,800 gross per month.
Yeah.
Wow. At 85% occupancy per month.
Yeah.
Should I be looking at you right here?
You can.
Confusing as to what's going on here. That's pretty good then. 85%. Wow.
Yeah, it's just
30 days stays.
No, that building's daily. You're allowed to do daily in that building.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But once you factor in the lease fee, the HOA fee, and like a management fee, all the cleaning and everything on a $250,000 purchase price. You're just not there. You're not where you want to be.
Yeah, not at 2,800 after all that.
I would love that analysis tool that you use for short terms.
Yeah, totally. I can send you one over. I've run it on that building before. So I could send something over.
Just for the sake of those who are new in the space of short-term rentals here in Oahu, there are some buildings that will allow daily. And what sets those buildings apart from the buildings that will be subject to the new regulations?
So the new regulations are now talking about 90-day minimums versus the like legit condo hotels are allowing for daily rentals.
So those are zone condo hotels, which is the difference.
Yeah, and there's very few left.
Right,
like the resort zone here is very small. It's just pockets of Waikiki.
Gotcha. Interesting. Cool. Good stuff to know for anybody who's looking at the space. Any other just general questions about short-term rentals for JD? Corey, you got anything?
I got one.
All right. Which means go for it.
Okay, so hey JD, the question is, can you shed a little light on the new acquisition that you're looking at right now, and for short-term rentals and kind of what that looks like?
Like what I look for when I look for new stuff, or do you want me to be specific?
Let's talk about the one you're looking at, we're doing together, that we're looking at right now in financing.
Okay, yeah, totally. I'll go through like why I like that one in general and how to look for other things like it, as well as more specifics on that deal. So this one is in Pennsylvania, and one of the main things that I like about the building, it's a 43 unit building. There's a lot of individual buildings that are cabins, and with the cabins, it just has that kind of short-term rental feel to it. There's room for renovation, which I think a lot of deals makes it a lot more attractive when you have room to value add. But the biggest thing that I'm looking at right now is the zoning. Anywhere that something is commercially zoned or allowed to be a short-term rental, Hawaii being a perfect example, at any time some things can change. And if you lose the ability to short-term rent, your deal drastically changes. So I've been looking at bigger deals that have the zoning that's just going to be grandfathered in regardless. And on this deal, it's a 43 unit. An old resort that used to be all short-term. The owners had converted it to long-term. It's operating at an 8.6% cap rate now as a long-term. So the really nice thing with that deal and what I would look for in the future because of this is something that's already rented. So if it's already has some rental income, it has room to be fixed up and the ability to kind of go through unit by unit and fix it, but leave current tenants in place as you do that and convert it from long-term to short-term. It's going to be a home run because you're making money from the start and just improving upon it later and giving yourself the opportunity to refi out after you've converted it. So you kind of get the best of every aspect of investing in every investment strategy. So that's why I like that deal. But it's a fun one. It's got that cabin aesthetic. It's really Instagrammable. There's the opportunity to go in and like put a personal touch on it. So it's a fun deal.
Do you have photos?
I do. Yeah. Yeah, I can throw some photos.
You had to say Instagrammable, so now we want to really check it.
No, I like that you use
Make
that.
it Instagrammable. It's not Instagrammable yet.
Oh, gotcha. Well, that's actually the key, to short-term rentals is creating a space where people see it on the listing and they can't wait to actually be there,
right,
to enjoy that. So maybe we could talk about that later. Is just what do you see in a space to turn something into a truly profitable short-term rental in terms of that Instagrammable space that is really popular? Because that's huge, right? Because they're looking at 50 listings in the same area and what sets your listing apart from the others so you can drive your occupancy up, which then as the occupancy go up, you can also drive your price up because then there's limited amount of days, right?
Totally. And I think this is something you and I talk about a lot is just, would you want to go, like, is it cool? Is it cool enough that you would purchase it yourself and go use it? That's like a big factor. So if you're not interested in going to stay there, why would anyone else be? Like, if you don't want to go there with your friends or you're not comfortable sharing it, like if you wouldn't want your mother to stay there, that's usually like one of the criteria that I use. And it goes the same with like furnishing and design and making something Instagrammable. If your listing looks like everything was sourced off of IKEA or Amazon Basics versus someone who put a little more effort and money in, and you don't even have to always put more money in, you can get creative on Facebook Marketplace and whatnot, but you want to look at something and be like, wow, like those pictures are great. You don't want to look cookie cutter and like everyone else's furniture from the store down the street.
JD, what market are you seeing is providing like the best returns for you guys and like for short-term vacation rentals? And also which type of property are you finding provides the best, I guess, cash flow? Is it the smaller studios that are rent short term, or is it like the bigger houses, and what market?
Yeah, and that's something I would say not to get too caught up in is the property type as much as the appeal and how you kind of feel about the place. Because there's a lot of different markets that are hot right now. We just ran, my team and I just ran studies on several different states and markets. We found that St. Augustine, Solano Beach, and Florida are both really hot markets right now to be in with high cash on cash. There's some areas in Texas, specifically just outside of Dallas, that are pretty nice. And then the Poconos is a classic go-to for us. We're having trouble finding something that beats it from a cash on cash. But what it comes down to for finding like the right property type just goes back to like, is it something that you'd want? Does it have like more of an experiential feel? Can someone recreate this? So a lot of times what I look for when I'm purchasing is a property that's like unique in how like the bones are or the size and like what you can do with it to make it so that no one else can really copy what it is that you're doing. I'll give you an example. So in Philadelphia, I had a house built from the ground up with extra support to put a hot tub on the roof. And in Philadelphia, the hot thing is that all new properties have roof decks that oversee the city skyline. But I own 2 places with hot tubs that you can sit in the hot tub and oversee the city skyline, which is just something that no one else can go and copy because they don't have the support for it in the building. So it's little things like that you can look for, and it's just finding a unique property that has it. But I wouldn't be too caught up in like the size of the place, but rather what you can offer to whatever type of group it's coming in, whether it's a small place that you're offering like a romantic getaway or a great place for a couple friends to come through, or like a big party place. You just want that group to have an experience that no one else can offer.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense actually, right? Because like there's a need for travelers who are traveling solo or couples, and then there's families. So it kind of spreads across the board. So what's more important, you're saying, is like, is there an appeal to the property, right? Like is something gonna, I remember you, the first call we had you on, you're saying that you try to have at least a few like kind of features or things that are different. And maybe the hot tub on the roof is, I mean, it doesn't get better than that, right? Like with the city skyline. So I get that. Yeah. Okay. That's good. And you said Dallas, there's markets outside of Dallas roughly that have demand for short-term rentals.
Yeah, like the Fort Worth area, like closer to that direction is a pretty hot area as well.
So what if do you look at location as well? Like if it's close to like downtown, or if it's in downtown, but it's kind of a standard unit, not even a house, maybe it's a condo. Would you still go into it and you'd find a way to make it look a little bit more like an experience?
Yeah, totally. The location is super important. And it's just being careful if that's already baked into the price. Because typically you're going to pay more for a location. So you just have to make sure the rental rates back that up the same way you would with a traditional.
Right.
But the way you have to think about it is versus traditional long-term rents where you're just kind of giving someone somewhere to live. You're giving an experience. You're getting people to spend their vacation money, something that a lot of people are willing to spend a little more on because it's a shorter term, or they'll splurge a little more, whereas they're not thinking as logically as they would if they're just finding a place to live for the long term. So the value adds from that, and that's where I think short-term rentals create a ton of value. 10,000 to have that hot tub up there, but if I have 90% occupancy versus the neighbor next door is 60, the ROI is insane. A lot of rentals, I'll build like a movie room in an extra bedroom if I have the space. Just anything that will cost me maybe 10 to 15,000 up front extra versus the person next door. But then the occupancy is just so much higher. You get your money back in the first 3 to 6 months.
That's awesome.
Nice. Yeah, that makes sense.
Kelly's got his hand up.
Kelly.
Hey, so quick question, JD, I appreciate you being here. Mixed plate of questions. So I'm gonna do my best to ask it. One, how do you determine or look for a phenomenal deal, or how do you know if it's a great deal? Two, can you also tell us maybe some apps, tips, websites that you're using to justify or crunch the numbers? That's a great deal. And then thirdly, this is good for me to know. Are you looking for properties that maybe you could fix up and rehab, then do an STR? Or are you just going straight into properties that's already a turnkey to become your STR? So that's my next plate of questions.
Appreciate the mixed plate of questions. I'll try to bang them out one at a time. So the first resource I would highly recommend is Price Labs. It's a pricing revenue tool, but they also have a feature where you can go in and see comparable listings. So you can pull up all the listings in whatever area that you want and see how much money they've brought in over the past year. So having the ability to look at comps and even pull up their Airbnb listings to see and match it to what yours might look like or what you're aiming to get really gives you an idea of how profitable the area is. So Price Labs is the one that you would want to use for that. I'm sure there's other softwares that do similar features, but that's the one that I would recommend and that I look at. They also give you just a ton of data on how the market's doing overall and which direction things are trending. So Price Labs is really helpful. As far as like strategy in terms of renovation or not, it really comes down to that same thing. So once you're comfortable with the market, and it really helps to kind of get an understanding of the market before you try to renovate everything. I think it makes it a little more complicated, especially for newer investors, to try to do something in the sense of a renovation and then turning it into an Airbnb. But you do get a lot out of it once you're comfortable doing that. It just makes it more complicated to underwrite because you have to do kind of the fix and flip underwriting, but at the same time, you have to do the Airbnb underwriting and combine the two. So it takes a little specialization, but it's super worth it.
Are you using or are you using more of the VRBO or Airbnb? Which platform are you posting your listings on?
So most of our listings are getting booked through Airbnb. I'd say about 55 to 60% of bookings come through Airbnb, another 20% through VRBO, and then another 20 to 25% through our website. To give everyone a little background, I work as an operator, so I manage about 225 rentals, and I own 23 myself. So we do handle a bunch and see a lot of data on where things are getting booked. We have a partnership with the Marriott. We have stuff that comes through the Marriott too, but I would say Airbnb is like, you have to be on it. Anyone who's not on Airbnb is losing money. From that respect, it's all about getting more eyeballs on your listing. So if you can publish in a lot of different places, you'll be able to get the highest amount back in. And there's softwares that you can use to manage your rentals so that if it gets booked on one site, it'll get taken off the other, so that you don't have to worry about kind of handling everything manually.
There's websites to do that.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different softwares. A good beginner software is GMS. That one's really cheap, and if you don't have a lot of listings, it's really easy to handle. But as you gain a lot more listings, the software we use now is called Guesty.com. And there's a couple of even softwares from there.
What was the beginner one? Sorry.
IGMS.
That's the one for people who get their birthdays.
IGMS is a really good one for that. Yeah. Yeah, these softwares are really cool. They allow you to set up like automatic chats. They will automatically text your cleaning team and schedule them. They have a lot of features that will really make everything a lot more scalable. The thing with IGMS is the Guesty just offers a better plan as you get bigger in terms of what you're paying for it, and offers more features to manage more places. But IGMS is great. I used that up until I had 15, I'd say. After that, I switched over to Guesty.
And that's Guest.
Guesty. I'll type it in the chat.
Okay. Question for JD. So last weekend in Pittsburgh, big Airbnb party, 2 miners get killed. So how do you avoid those types of situations happening in your area? Or if they can't be prevented, what do you do for insurance coverage? Because that kind of stuff is, that's a scary thing for a brand new investor to think about having a house with a big house party. Doesn't it say like 400 people showed up to this party?
Yeah, and that's the hard thing with Airbnb is there's always going to be those events and situations as far as screening. Like you can prevent as much as possible and put systems in place to prevent it. And I'll go over like what those are, but those horror stories do happen. And the more Airbnbs you have and the more stuff you do, you like that kind of stuff will come up. So you just have to put yourself in the best position to mitigate the risk. We have very strict like screening guidelines and like kind of a point system that our chatters will use to decide if a guest should be staying or not. And then after that, if someone gets through, we have insurance policies on every reservation. So when you host through Airbnb, you get insurance through them up to $1 million in coverage. But other websites, you don't really get that same thing. So we use a company called Safely to have third-party insurance on everything. It's about $40 a reservation, and then they cover you pretty heavily. And they're really good about paying out claims if there is anything, if there's any damage. Knock on wood, we haven't had any like shootings or anything like that. But with having so many reservations every month, I think we host close to 1,500 reservations a month now. One of those is going to be a party, and there's going to be damage to a house somewhere. A lot of our houses are bigger and attract that type of crowd. So even people who have like 5 perfect 5-star reviews and they're staying for the 6th time, that the 6th time could be the one where they get a little too reckless.
Yeah, they get comfortable, and then the owner gets comfortable too on the reservation. They're like, oh, they've been here 5 times, hadn't had an issue before, and also that happens to be the grad party that 500 people show up at. So I think the key lesson for real estate investors is to always be prepared and to think the what ifs. And the what ifs is not to be fearful, but the what ifs is to be prepared. And the what ifs is like, what if there is a shooting? What happens if somebody commits suicide on your property? And this is not just short-term rentals. This is multifamily rentals. This is anything where there's potential of liability. Same thing if you're flipping a house. What happens if a sub of your contractor slips, falls, or something falls on their head and they somehow die on your property? Is your insurance coverage going to cover that? Those are the things that we don't talk about often, but those are the things that are really important to be aware of. I got a call actually a week ago that our Las Vegas property, there was a murder on the property. And I was like, man, that's not the way I want to start my day, is a murder report on one of our properties. But the cool thing is, before we closed, we checked our insurance policies, and we're fully covered for murder, which you don't really think that through. And we were fully covered for that. Because there's also lost rents when you actually have something like that happen, because the police like cone off the whole place, right? And that Airbnb is now shut down. And so now that owner has no rental income while police does investigations. So lots of different things to think about. Bottom line is be prepared and always ask the what if questions, because when we first start off, I think, and Corey and I can attest to this, you start off with great dreams and high ambitions, and sometimes your enthusiasm gets farther before your frugality and your preparedness, maybe sometimes. So kind of a cool lesson, but anyways, thought I'd bring that up since
that's when reality smacks you. Yeah. We got a couple of smacks here and there.
The smacks, you make them sound light. They weren't snacks, but we got
but we still here.
A couple times, like, it hurts.
Well, Jason Lum, who I think just jumped right back on, he had a question for you. The aqua palms, JD, you know anything about that condo? Because I think that's a condo tel as well. I used to have in the Bamboo, which is run by Aqua, but not the Palms. Have you heard of that one?
I've heard of it. I don't know enough about it to speak to what it could do or how they run it. So I can't really say.
I'd say it's probably the same as the Island Colony. Yeah, it's you just gotta watch out for the HOAs, all the expenses that you may not account for, right? Which all matters. So, yeah. Thanks for the question, Jason.
Yeah, sorry. I wish I could give you more. I'm just not super familiar with the building.
Yeah, and Jason's got a deal hopefully coming up soon. Anybody else have questions for JD?
JD, share that just the North Carolina deal real quick.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, sure. So the other deal we have under contract right now is called the Cabins at Healing Springs. It came about in the 1800s. They found like healing power water on these springs, and they built a bunch of like resort style cabins on the property that have just been being used. Most of the cabins are from the 1900s, like early 1900s. So we've got that. I got it seller financed, and we're closing in about 45 days. It's a pretty cool deal in the sense that the cabins are just super rustic. They don't need a whole lot of work. They've got tree houses that they've built on the property. Basically, this woman and her family just spent like the last 10, 15 years just making it as cool as they could. And in North Carolina, the property laws are pretty forgiving in terms of what you can do and add on. So we'll probably add some more tree houses and different things out there that will just make it the experience even a little more fun. And a fun fact that I learned touring in North Carolina last month is you can serve alcohol on a property without a license if you either have 2 donkeys or 2 tennis courts. Because if you have either of those things, then you are officially a private club and can do whatever you want.
Two donkeys?
Yeah, 2 donkeys. Because then you're an equestrian club.
Really? I'm gonna start selling donkeys.
Yeah, we toured one that had 1 tennis court and 1 donkey, and it was no good. You have to have 2 of one or the other.
Gotta have 2 donkeys.
That's still legit.
What if you have 3 donkeys?
It's crazy. 3, you're good. Yeah, you're definitely a club then.
Yeah, then you can.
That's
sell
a party.
lots of alcohol.
That's VIP.
I have another question. So my question is, why do you invest into SPRs, right? One of maybe the pros, but then also the con. What are some of the worst things a new investor should look out for? Or give us a nightmare story, because I believe it's not all sunshine and rainbows. A lot of social media boasts SPRs. Everybody's making a killing, but if you can give us the positive and the negative, just so I guess we can hear the bad side of owning an SPR.
Yeah, totally. I do think that STR is overly glamorized in a lot of social media and from a lot of gurus. And a couple of things that I don't like that they do is they make it seem like it's not that much work. It is so much more effort than a long-term rental is, and you have to keep that in mind. And that's really what you're getting paid for in running a short-term rental. Of course, you can get a management company on it, and the numbers will still be better than long-term. But the other situation is COVID was a great example. Things can happen, pandemics can happen. And if you are in the short-term space, you're likely to get hit a whole lot harder than someone who's collecting a long-term check every month, because those tenants don't go away, whereas short-term rental tenants do. And then the last thing that I would fear with short-term rentals is just being careful of regulations. They can change anytime. And I think that added risk is another reason you get such a high premium on the cash that you're able to collect. So those are the downfalls, but there's a lot of benefits to short-term rentals too, on top of the extra cash flow. One being that your occupancy is just, a lot of people fear that it's less consistent, but it ends up being a lot more consistent. You're not going to have to deal with evictions. There's a lot less risk in people not paying you because everything is paid up front. And if you don't like a tenant with short-term space, you can remove them, whereas you just don't have that same power and protection. And I think another myth is that long-term tenants will take better care of the place. I feel like it's the exact opposite. Short-term rental tenants are so worried you're going to keep their deposit or charge them for something. And you have cleaners going in and out of the place every 3 to 5 days, whatever it may be. You have someone who's checking on the property regularly and keeping the property up to super high standards. Whereas with long-term stuff, you can go in there after a couple months or after a year, after being rented for a couple of years, and it can be completely trashed and ruin all of the cash flow that you had. And it's a lot harder to go back and collect that versus just relisting the property and continuing to operate on short term. So there's a lot of benefits to the short term on top of the cash flow. And as long as you can mitigate that regulatory risk and knock on wood that there's not another pandemic soon, you should be okay in the short term space.
There's another variant coming up. There's another variant.
Seriously?
No,
We don't want to talk about that.
Yeah.
We'll pretend that doesn't exist.
Well, and how do you mitigate the risk by having a secondary exit strategy? So mitigating the risk of like new regulation coming out. Do you guys like make sure that if in the worst case scenario, you can rent it long term and still cash flow a little bit, or at least break even, or?
Yeah, that's kind of a double-edged sword because if you're gonna be looking to have the right exit strategy, a lot of the best short-term rentals, the reason they're so profitable is they're in areas that you're not going to be able to long-term rent and make the same money. So if you're going into more like urban markets, it's a lot easier to kind of have that exit strategy on that side of things. But otherwise, I would say just when you are looking at markets that are short-term markets, you just want to watch out for what potential bills are coming through or what kind of regulations have been talked about. Usually there's like a good 12 to 24 month lag effect between when these rules are brought up and when they actually go into effect. So you just want to make sure you have your ear to the ground on stuff that's coming up, or just make sure things are zoned the right way so that you can never lose the power. It's almost like kind of like an option play. You may take a little hit and pay a premium when you first get the property if it's zoned that way. But if anything ever does change, you're the one with the gold mine at that point.
Right. Yeah.
So if it works, if the numbers work now and it's zoned right, then your only possibility is it's going to get way better.
Yeah. That's really good. Kind of smart, aren't you? Jade's a beast, man. If you take a look at this guy's portfolio, like, yeah, how many properties do you guys control and or manage?
225 roughly.
Across different, how many different states?
We have like 12 major hubs that we operate out of,
Yeah.
and then just like a handful that are just like one-offs in a state or two, like markets that we're definitely interested in getting in.
Yeah. Love it. Have you done anything with midterm rentals yet, like traveling nurses?
Yeah, we actually have like a pretty decent market for that in Philadelphia in our like downtown area. We've had Barstool Sports, we've had HGTV, like a lot of big names that will come through and rent anywhere from like 3 months to 9 months. Sometimes they'll start at 3 months and stay month to month. That market's fantastic.
Because that return is even higher.
Yeah, I would say it's usually like close to, if not it's the same as doing like the daily rentals, except for it's just 10 times easier to manage and run when they're in there that
That
capacity. Yeah,
because you just turn over, so there's no like turnover service until they check out, right?
exactly. The costs are way more predictable.
Right. Yeah.
In that sense. So the medium term is really healthy
Right.
if you can find the right markets for that.
Man, so Costco must love you then now with all those units. Yes, stop the units. I just have to do that, buy all paper towels, toilet paper. You don't realize how much like essentials that you should put in the house, right? I think you start having to buy it consistently. So, I mean, yeah, shop it every.
I think just in the last 3 months of last year, we spent $500,000 on supplies and furniture.
200 something units.
Yeah.
Right? Furniture too.
Yeah, between
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's a big budget. A lot of
just like replacing furniture and replacing toilet paper, like that kind of stuff adds up.
$500,000 in the last what?
I want to say it was the last 3 months of the year.
So just a quarter.
Just a quarter.
$500,000 in whole. So you
Yeah.
gotta slice that off for every time the rent comes in or a payment comes in, you have to set aside like.
When you do your underwriting, you want to just add like a certain dollar amount to every reservation you have. Maybe it's like $10 to $20 depending on the size of the unit. But you can just assume that if you leave rolls of toilet paper out, they're going to get taken. Like every roll that you leave out is taken, whether you leave out 40 for 2 people or if you like, they're going to pocket it. Detergent, like everything. So you have to be really careful with how many supplies you leave out to be like generous, but know that they're going to be gone.
Especially people cockroach the toilet paper.
They cockroach everything.
They take them home.
Yeah,
Like,
sometimes silverware, like you have to have extra silverware on supply.
Has anyone trashed any of your Airbnbs? Trashed your properties?
Yeah, I'd say over like the 25,000 reservations we've had maybe 2 or 3 that have been close to like 10,000 in damages, and everything else has been like 1,000 or smaller. Nothing too crazy. And every time that does happen, you just shut down for 3 to 5 days, get everything fixed up by a contractor, get anything replaced that needs to get replaced, and you get a claim payout from one of those third-party providers that I talked about, or through Airbnb, and you just right back to business.
Does that happen often?
No, no, and that's with
25.
With the right screening, it's not that bad. I would say like a majority of claims, like 95% of claims are $1,000 or less, with most of those being like $200 or less.
Yeah.
We have a whole claims team. So what we did is we hired a bunch of people that were working on Airbnb's claims team on that side of things, and then brought them over to our side to start filing claims for us, for our company.
Oh, shoot.
So when you have do you give bad reviews? Because I know some of the people I do with Airbnb, they don't want to do bad reviews when people do take things or trash things.
It depends what it is. Like if someone steals silverware, as long as they still left the house clean, like that's still a great guess in my opinion. It's not a big deal.
That's crazy. There's like people will legit steal things and then they just still get 5-star reviews. So you get 5-star reviews, yeah?
Yeah, and that's you wanna push to get a 5-star review back. The hard thing is a lot of the times that you get bad reviews are the people who trash your house because they know you're gonna get them and they're just retaliatory with it.
Can you
So
get those removed?
you can. There's a lot of different things you can get reviews removed for. It's pretty hard, but there's a set list of things that you can get pulled. And you try to get them to say it. Like it's almost fun for them to leave a review and like ask them, complain about everything you can, because then you know you can get it pulled for something.
Oh, gotcha.
I just like how everyone in the cake office is doing musical video.
Yeah, we're all on the Wi-Fi. JD and I are sitting in the same place as these guys. They're getting a little fresh. So Ashley, basically, if we want new silverware, we just book at one of JD's Airbnbs. We get new towels, get new silverware, and we still get 5-star reviews. Oh, and toilet paper. So
Yeah, so when there's COVID again, we're gonna book at yours so we can get some toilet paper.
yeah, exactly.
If you're willing to pay those nightly rates, come on in. Take what you want.
That's what I said, the premium. No, this is awesome.
He factored that stolen toilet paper in his month of the.
Yeah.
We're in COVID, must have been, have plenty of people taking toilet paper. Yeah, that's true. That's hard.
Build up your 5 stars and then book with Jason at the Aqua Pumps and go trash
There you
his
go.
place.
That's awesome.